All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle. I am your host, Tyler Heisman, licensed realtor here in the Okanagan. Oh my gosh. As you can probably even kind of still hear in my voice, I have been incapacitated for the last week and a bit. I have been so sick. It was terrible. There is a water main construction going on outside my house. It has been just an absolute terrible week. I know I said I was going to cover some of the election stuff. First day came up, haven't done anything since then. So yeah, a little bit of a hiccup in my own life, but hey, what can you do? It's been a crazy time for a lot of people, and I'm sure some are having a little bit of an issue keeping track of everything. So yeah, just wanted to touch base on the housing market again and just kind of see how things have been morphing over the last 2 weeks. Obviously, I have been keeping tabs on everything going on with the election and new policy announcements and stuff like that. We're seeing both sides really try to do what they can to win. I think they've changed a few of the mentions, like the liberals are proposing moving the GST off of first-time home buyers for purpose-built units and stuff like that. Whereas I believe the conservatives are talking about removing GST for all first-time home builds up to like 1.3 million or something like that. So yeah, a few things to definitely touch on. But we're going to be taking a look here at Bloomberg's video. They've put out one checking the pulse on the housing market in Canada. It's an interesting time. I've definitely noticed a little bit of change in consumers. To be honest, it's crazy. I've kind of noticed that, the first time home buyers and the young people that are making their moves post COVID, to be honest, most of the time it's not anybody who has made a move in the COVID time. Because a lot of the times, if you're one of those people that did make a move during the COVID time, myself being one of them, I moved in February 2022, so kind of like end of the peak of the market kind of thing. Things are just starting to fall off there, but the inventory was still at like, gosh, like under 2 months or something like that. So it was just insane at that time. You're not selling at a positive, right? Like I look at those people who just bought into the market, and if they have a house, it's mainly, I would say, that missing middle area of the people that moved out of their townhouses into their first starter home, or the classic BC box, those 1980s builds, all those places that were decently priced that you were having to put a bunch of work into in order to get them up to market standard or whatever, right? And that's where a lot of that opportunity still kind of remained in the COVID market, even though it was, the prices were super inflated. So there's a big discrepancy between the generation of people who have market history to look back in or back on at, or the people that just look at what's going on now. All those people that are selling, hopefully they're in a position where they got to at least ride the COVID wave up and down, not necessarily you just like rode it down the whole way, you know what I mean? Because that's a terrible feeling when you buy into a market, you don't make any money. I try to encourage the people that didn't make their first purchase in COVID to look back at your real estate investment as a whole, right? Not in each individual purchase. Unfortunately, we don't live in the times that our parents grew up in when you could flip houses and do stuff like that. There's just too much regulation, fees, stuff like that. Like you're paying a lot of money when it comes to your transfer of property nowadays. So it's not as lucrative as it used to be, because they're trying to make it less lucrative so that people have more of an opportunity to get into the housing market, right? So anyways, that was my little bit of a spiel for this morning's video here. Let's pass it off here to Bloomberg and see what they got to say.
Ontario and BC are Canada's most expensive real estate markets, but homes in both those provinces are actually cheaper now than they were a year ago. Coming from a new report put out by Royal LePage. For more on that, let's go to Phil Soper. He's president and CEO at Royal LePage. Thanks for coming in.
My pleasure.
So this is pretty interesting. I'm wondering what you're seeing in these markets, Toronto and Vancouver specifically, and why we're seeing a drop in prices. Is it just straight demand? There isn't as high demand?
It's driven by the much higher prices we see for homes in these two cities. There's some local things that are changing the picture. In Toronto, for example, we have a large number of completions in large condo projects, so there is a flood of supply last year, this year, that
these big pricing drops too are particularly happening in the condo market for the most part, and it's because of the short-term rental ban that's happened in BC and stuff like that, so that these Airbnb rentals that people had, like those two towers that they made in Kelowna, are pretty much useless because they're essentially like a king suite hotel room that was built for the purpose of rental investment, and then they just said, hey, no more rental investment.
That's temporary, but it's all related to people's comfort with making a major decision in this environment, and the more expensive the decision, the more uncomfortable people get.
And it's not just the purchase of the home, but these markets like Toronto, you have a lot of property tax you have to sort of factor into your finances. And I'm wondering if people take that into consideration, other costs in these busy cities that make it less affordable?
Yeah, we did dive in this time and ask people for more insight into what was driving their attitudes. About half the people said the current economic environment wasn't impacting their decision, that they would move ahead. Half said they would not. Now, only a third of those said it was affordability related. And we did ask about not just housing affordability, but the cost of living overall. So if you back out of those numbers, it's about 17% that say affordability is a big issue. The big issue in our expensive cities is just uncertainty. The same thing, driving CEO, capital investment, travel.
Well, and the uncertainty part, like, it's not just economic, it's everything. There's literally, since November, the U.S. federal election has happened. We, in Canada, have had 4 different finance ministers, if I got that right. Liberal leadership race, federal election, trade wars, ongoing wars. I'm pretty sure new wars. Now all this stuff going on with like our new trade partnership with America or with UK and all this type of stuff. Like, there's just so much happening at the moment that it's like, what are you expecting people to do, right? Like, do you expect people to just continue to act like they did in COVID? Like, it's just crazy to think that when a bunch of stuff happens that people just think that like they're gonna go nuts. Like, obviously we need to take a step back and just let this next 6 months play out. Like, the predictability, stop trying to predict what's happening right now. It's obvious. Like, people are waiting to see what happens. It's an end of the story. Like, it's either gonna get worse or it's not. It's one of the two things. So, if it doesn't get worse, then where you're left off with is probably better off than you would be if you waited for it to get worse, right? Like, because it's already so bad at the moment that waiting for it to get a little bit worse, like, I don't think that's going to change. And I don't think the worse is going to be like exponentially worse. I think that just means that we stay where we are. Like, I think people need to take a more an objective step back at where we actually are currently, because we're not in a good situation whatsoever. So, you know what I mean? Like, staying even close to this is not a good thing, right?
Okay, let's talk about Montreal and Quebec City, because there were some huge upswing for prices in both of those cities. And what are you seeing happening there?
Well, number one, they're the most optimistic people in the country. It's shocking how different, for example, Alberta and Quebec are. in Quebec, 65% of people say they are very optimistic about their economic situation.
Where do they live? Like, really, where are they living?
I was saying to my the guy who runs our Quebec operations for us today, I said, do people not listen to the news?
Yeah,
I thought maybe they're not on Fox.
Yeah.
So, and he said, well, there's a little bit of that, but no, tariffs are all the talk, Trump's all the talk. They just, economically, it has been a good few years in Quebec.
Okay, so outside of both Quebec City, Montreal, or Quebec, are there prices rising elsewhere that are of note?
Everywhere except Vancouver and Toronto.
Interesting.
Yeah. So we're seeing Atlantic Canada quite.
Which is crazy to think that whatever happened in those big cities was so messed up that literally pretty much the rest of the country is going up in price and Vancouver and Toronto are not. And it's weird too, because by proxy, the Okanagan is heavily affected by the Vancouver market, and we're like 6 hours away from it, 5 hours away from it. We're so inland, right? 500 or so kilometers, 450 kilometers. So yeah, it's crazy what type of a market we're experiencing, but once again, the best possible thing that you can do is be ready to hop on whatever opportunity presents itself, because if you're one of those people that is trying to wait for the golden goose, red herring, all that type of stuff, like you're going to be in competition with people, because a lot of people are doing that. Whereas if you're the type of person that looks at everything as a snapshot and what is your best option for this current situation that you're in right now, those are the people that are going to capitalize on some opportunity, I personally think. Otherwise, the second things get better, the flood is going to start again. Like, I know we have a lot of inventory and there's a lot of stuff out there, but you have to realize that just because there's a lot of inventory doesn't mean that the choices get necessarily better. It just means that there's more of them, right? If those choices were all really, really good, don't you think they would be sold by now?
We came into 2025 expecting, our forecast built in 2024 showed it to be the strongest year since.
I know it's completely unrelated, but I saw these online. They're butterfly knife golf divot tool fixers. I want to give a shout out to the dude. Can't remember what his name is. Two Talents. Go check him out. One of like the coolest little things I've ever seen. It's like a little small business. I really liked supporting them or whatever. I got all my bachelor or my groomsmen, some engraved ones or whatever.
It's that pandemic boom. All
for
the
our wedding,
fundamentals,
it's pretty cool.
Savings, dropping borrowing costs, low default rate on mortgages, and pent-up demand because we had that post-pandemic correction. Everything was pointed to a very boisterous year, and it is unfolding. Maybe
I just want to go back and really just take a quick little. So I just want to point out at what these front yards look like. Like, that's another one too that people really need to get their head wrapped around when it comes to when you want to sell your home. Like, you need to realize in this day and age, especially with how much money people are having to pay for this type of stuff, is that you need to have a home that looks like you actually cared about your home, right? You need to take care of it. You need to trim your lawn. You need to edge your grass, your driveway, and all that type of stuff. Because when people walk onto a property and just see that it's undealt with and it's just really, really expensive, and you're expecting me to pay a premium to do a bunch of this work, like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, you need to give people good product, especially when the product is at a premium price. It's like, it's business 101. I'm not even a salesperson. That's the other thing too, is our team, we don't consider ourselves to be salespeople. We're realtors that assist you in the transactions that you want to be. We look out for your best interest, and we give you all the information that you need to make the best possible decision for yourself. I'm not selling anything to you. That is not what we do. We represent buyers. I will give you as much information as you need to make the best possible choice for yourself. That is what my job is. I don't have to sell you on anything. So I will never try to sell somebody on a property that is not worth their time. I will 100% point out all of these types of things and make the buyer realize that people will do what they can to try to hide things from you as well, right? Like look at the condition of the property and what that means. And when people do that, a lot of the times they find things that are just not worth pursuing.
Boisterous year, and it is unfolding, maybe on a muted basis, in the prairies, Atlantic Canada, Quebec, but in southern Ontario and the lower mainland of BC, Greater Vancouver, things are stunted.
Okay. You have mentioned it's a market shaped by caution.
Yes.
Is it more than that, do you think, or is caution it?
Well, affordability is definitely playing in, but not in the way we typically think of it in Canada, where, it's been 30 years since people have had wages and salaries rising at a faster rate than underlying cost of housing. We're over 3 years now where every month the overall cost of housing relative to incomes has improved. So homes have been getting more affordable for 3 years now, and that is playing, and people see it as.
Once again, I feel like this ties back into what I said earlier, where it takes time for people to readjust to this market, and that's why the people that are post-COVID making real estate moves are the ones that aren't thinking nearly as drastically as, because like he said, in the last 3 years, quote unquote, things have been getting more affordable. But for everybody else that was in the market prior to COVID, things have gotten radically unaffordable, and they're just slightly less radically unaffordable. So it's like, it's not even, that's the way that the 28-year-olds and the 30-year-olds, those first-time home buyer generation that really got snubbed out of their first homes, that's not the way that they're well, they are thinking that way, but it's like, I've never heard somebody saying that things are getting more affordable. They're just saying that the market's slowing. That's more about what it is, or that there's just garbage out there, right? Like there's just a lot of people wanting money, which is true.
There's a window of opportunity, and you have to be decide if you're in the wary or the brave category in terms of whether you want to make a move at this particular time.
Okay, so we've been talking about prices, where homes are doing well, where they're not. I'm wondering, since spring is usually a very busy time for
I'm pretty confident in the fact that if you're buying into the single family dwelling, especially the starter home and that missing middle market, you won't be having an issue on sellability, and I don't think you're going to have that much fluctuation on your pricing, just because there's so many people that are ready to get into those homes, and it's what we call the missing middle, right? There's a lot of townhouses, a lot of condos, a lot of these smaller density type of building projects that they're doing nowadays, and there's no starter homes, no little neighborhoods and stuff like that are going in that people can buy into that aren't ridiculously expensive with the new building prices, right? So for those people buying into condos and townhouses for their first purchase, it's a little bit of a different story. Same thing with those people that are buying into a market that's like $1.1 million and higher, right? Like you're potentially looking at a slow time for the next little bit, and whether or not you think the market is going to continue in a downward trend on those places, that's the risk. I think a lot of that middle ground area, it's a little bit of a different story.
real estate. How would you characterize the start of the spring season in Canada?
Very slow overall, driven by the huge impact that the Golden Horseshoe has on overall transactions in Canada. It's just such a populous area, and it's been quite down. The volume of homes, home prices are virtually flat, but down a couple of points. But the volume of homes trading hands has been quite low. So that has put a damper on the overall numbers. But we are expecting a delayed, call it a kickoff to the spring market. If you think of 2020 and the adjustment that people made to we had no vaccines or anything in 2020, but people adjusted to the fact, oh, I'm going to keep my job. I do need a home. Oh, I can be safe to get out there. And we saw by the end of 2020 a lift in the market, despite the fact that there were clouds and uncertainty. I think there's an adjustment period that's going to happen here, and we'll see more people. I'll give you one data point that I just got right before we came on air. Visits to our website. It's the busiest real estate company website in the country. We're up 20% week over week. So we typically get that in
a lot of sitting and waiting.
Early March.
I was going to say. Okay.
So it's that doesn't, my CFO would say, show me the money.
Yeah.
But as a optimistic CEO, I say activity leads to change.
Okay, so if you're a buyer or an investor at this time, a buyer or seller, excuse me, how would you advise each?
Well, you can look around, you can shop, because interest rates, even if they don't go down tomorrow, they are going to get cheaper, and home prices are relatively flat. I don't think you're going to see much of a dip in home prices this year. There's just we have a housing shortage in this country, and it's created a floor on house prices. And of course, it depends where you live. In some places, prices are actually rising modestly. So take your time, put those conditions on financing in your offer if you feel you need them, get a home inspection, and don't feel rushed. Canadians typically in our big cities always rushed to buy, and now is a bit of a window of clarity or calm in a tumultuous world.
Yeah, you don't have to sign on the dotted line.
This is a
as soon as you see the house. Thanks very much for coming in, Phil Soper.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Anyways, this is apparently, I was talking to our team leader and my mother, who says that this is a super, super similar market to how things were back in 2008, 2009, around that financial crisis, when, people just weren't making moves as much. A lot of sales were subject to sale. So they had places to sell before they could actually get their offer to lock in. It makes it tough, right? It makes it really, really tough. And we fully recommend that people sell their homes before they make offers, because if you do that in this day and age, you'll be way, way more successful. Like, I'm watching with a few different clients, a few listings, because they have houses to sell as well, but the offers that are on these listings have subjects to sale. So I'm like, let's be aggressive with where you're priced on your place, and if you're willing to get out, I can get you into this home still, but we need to sell your home first. And obviously, if they're getting extensions on these accepted offers with the subjects to sales on them, then people are having issues selling their stuff still. So, opportunity is out there. It just depends on how you want to approach it, or if you just want to wait. And I totally understand both sides of the story. I'm one of those people that I take a look at how things are in front of me, and I make the best decision for myself at that point in time, and just don't look behind and don't look forward, because if you do too much of both, you're going to be either hesitant or regretful, and neither of those are good decisions. So anyways, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Hizzy Hustle. Don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I will try to get back to making videos more consistently. Sorry to anyone. I don't really have very many consistent followers yet at the moment, so I don't think I disappointed too many people, but hey, what can you do? See ya.